It's our time. It's our time. Hey there, I'm Shub from North of Normal, and this is One Song, One Story. The concept is simple. Each guest brings a song, and together we explore what it means to them, the memories it holds, the feelings it unlocks, the story it tells about who they are. Today's episode is about identity, courage, and the moment music gives you permission to live truthfully. I'm joined by Gazit Chaya Nkosi, a healer, a nervous system practitioner whose life journey has taken them through religion, self-discovery, heartbreak, and profound spiritual growth. Gazit Chaya brings a song from the musical Rent that became a kind of compass during some of the most challenging and transformative moments of their life. It's a song about love, loss, and the reminder that, in the end, there really is only one place we can live. All right, let's begin. Enjoy. Welcome to the One Song, One Story podcast. Gazit Chaya, how are you there?
Oh, I'm so grateful.
And
Just thrilled to be
whereabouts in
here.
the world are you today?
I am in Massachusetts in the US, and I don't think you told me. Where are you?
I am in Newcastle in England, right up the north of England.
Wow, that's wild. That's where my ancestors are from.
No way.
Yeah, like a complete half of them are from
Oh my
Newcastle.
God.
It's the same as Newcastle upon Tyne.
That's where I am right now, yes.
Ah! Oh my gosh. My great grandma lived above like a pub there for ever and ever, and that, or maybe it was my great aunt, my great grandma. I think my great grandma moved
Wow.
from there to the US when she was pregnant with my grandpa. But oh my gosh,
What are the
what a
chances?
small world.
Oh, that's really good to find out. That's really good to find out. Even more of a connection. And you said it's afternoon with you. It's snowy in Boston. If your day today was a song, what would the title of that song be? And what would the vibe be?
Ooh. Well, uh I rewatched I don't wanna give it away, but I rewatched the show that we're gonna be talking about today, um, by myself, sort of, like, crying, in the gloominess, all curled up, like, sewing together these little shell pieces that I'm gonna, like, create a lampshade out of. My
Wow.
Yeah, my kid, who I have shared custody of, um he's had strep throat all week, and he transitioned to his other mom's house, yesterday, and, I also have he lovingly gifted me the strep throat. So I went to the doctor yesterday, got my, antibiotics, so I'm feeling great, much better, but I'm still catchy, so I've just been home crying about our beloved show and looking forward to talking with you. So what is the song? Oh, I mean, I think the soundtrack of the show is the song, you know, yeah, this wild, reality of being in human life and loving and being, confronted by loss nonstop and pain and confusion and sickness and health and yeah, all of the mess of it and that we like find, when I saw the name of your podcast, the song One Song, Glory, it's called Glory from Rent. And it starts with one song, glory, one song before I go, and it's this like let me just write one song. Let me have something that means something from this life, even
Yeah.
though there's so much pain and, so I was feeling quite dramatic and romantic and, one song all day today.
Wow. I mean, these are great emotions to write a song with. That's all the good stuff. Dramatic, emotion, slightly under the weather.
Ugh,
Oh, this is good. You should get writing, I think. Get writing. There could be some
all
gold in
right,
there.
all right.
And another thing I like to do with my guests on the podcast is think of a song that either connects us or that comes to mind when I think of, this is the first time we've met, but it was purely based on your name and what I thought was the pronunciation of your name. My little daughter's called Kaya, and I thought your name might have been the same, so I actually chose Kaya by Bob Marley, which is a great tune, a great tune.
How
Um,
beautiful.
yeah,
And another synchronicity because my kiddo's middle name is Marley.
no way. What is going on here?
We are getting it left and right.
Ah.
Something.
Ah. And
That's pretty wild.
I will ask you, no reasons, no worries if you haven't got one. You can come back to me. But as we sit in front of each other here, is there a song that comes into your mind as we're talking at all?
Immediately when I saw your scarf, I could barely even acknowledge you because I was in such love with your scarf. Um, and I am a musical person, which I'm sure by now will not surprise you. But Jacob and the Technicolor Dreamcoat is one of my favorite shows. And that would be one to check out if you're gonna explore any
Yeah.
other musicals. But it reminds me of that. And there's a part in the song that's they're naming all the songs red and yellow and green and gold and violet and ochre and I can't remember them all. But that song comes to mind when I saw you.
Okay. Great shout. Great shout. The Technicolor Dream Scarf. That's what I'm
That's
going to
beautiful.
call it from now on. Um, and listen, you brought a great song with you. And I can't wait to get into it and understand your relationship to that song. But before we do, it would be great to understand a little bit more about your connection to music. So I'm always fascinated by, people's earliest memories of music. So do you remember your earliest musical memories? Like, was it falling in love with a particular song, or how did it work for you?
The it's very unusual, but my all-time favorite music is Christmas music.
Oh, wow. I
And
love Christmas music too.
yeah, it's just I listen to it 100% of the time all year and have done since I was a child. And, when you're a teenager and people are like, "Oh, what kind of music do you like?" I was so out of it. I was always like, Christmas music." I have never had an ounce of cool, like, anywhere in me,
What? That
and,
is so cool.
I know. I just have always been obsessed, and by my bedside when I was itty bitty, I don't know if it was from when I was a baby or when it came along, but there was a little music box that hung on the wall, and you could pull this chain, and it played Silent Night. Dun, da, dun,
Oh,
dun.
yeah.
Yeah, that little, like, plunk, 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 plunk kinda music box, and as it was running out of steam, it would slow down, and it would kinda wake me up, and then I'd pull it again, and I would play it all night long, so I think I also grew up in, a religious household, so Christmas was a time when we went to church and had a lot of music, and I always thought the Christmas Eve service was just the most
Mm.
beautiful. So I had that whole experience sort of with this like magical, mystical what Christmas felt like to me. And then my dad was also very into um R&B and, Motown music, and so I heard a lot of that growing up, and he really loves music. He was not a super emotional person, but he would sit on the couch and put a record on, and he would cry.
Yeah.
Um, the music moved him so much, and so I recognized that he had a really powerful connection with music, and even though we weren't very close, as I got older, sometimes he would send me a record or a CD. I think that
Mm,
was a way that he felt like he could communicate with me,
yeah.
and I credit him for my love of musicals, really. We listened to a lot of musical soundtracks, and it may have been there was some, like, constriction around religion eventually because they sort of became more religious as I got older, and so a lot of the choices were these old musicals, um, you know, we watched a lot of Fred Astaire,
Oh,
Shirley
yeah.
Temple, and then
I
we would
love
listen.
Shirley Temple.
Yeah. Yeah, so, a lot of music, interestingly, my mom did not sing. She would not sing, she
Mm.
thought she had a bad voice, and I used to beg her to sing me to sleep when she was putting me to bed, and she'd be like, "No, I'm not gonna sing, no, I'm not gonna sing." So, eventually, she bought me a cassette tape of some woman singing lullabies, and they were called Lullabies.
Oh,
And I wore out that tape until it wouldn't play anymore. I found a CD, brought that to college with me, listened to that every night before falling asleep. Into my marriage, and then sang those songs to my kiddo
oh,
when he was a baby. So that is also like a very, very dear um, connection with music that, that sound is always in my head of those songs.
mm, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. I think when you're, doing something like that, singing songs to your child that you heard when you were a child, there's more than the sound coming across there. There's like some sort of deep generational energy going through there. That's amazing. And I've got to bring it back because Christmas music all year round is one of the coolest things I've ever heard, right? And I'm not very good with rules and authority and stuff like that. And a lot of people have these rules about Christmas music where they're like, nope, you can't listen to that before 1st of December. And then January it goes off. And I'm like, I can't stop these going round in my head. Like, oh, yeah, like they're such great tunes. But I love the way you just loud and proud. You like Christmas is my genre. That's what I'm into.
My jam.
And then I always think, what I would probably call your musical formative years as being or certainly for me, being in your teens, where there's a lot of discovery, a lot of identity rolled up into there. Curious to know what was some of the sort of the artists you listened to in your teens or the genres that you listened to in that era.
Yeah, so interestingly, because things had sort of gotten more religious over time,
Mm,
um, by the time I was in 4th grade, we had switched into a religious school, and our world became only the religious school and church. And there was no, like, really no outside music
yeah,
allowed. So for that period of time, it was a very I don't know if it happened in the UK, but in the US, like, late '80s to, you know, still going, but especially to the early 2000s, there was, like, this huge, fundamentalist evangelical Christian movement, and along with it came their own Christian, like, rock music. It was the
yeah,
Amy
yeah, yeah,
Grant, the Michael W. Smith, the Jars of Clay, Stephen Curtis Chapman, later in the later edge of that, Jennifer Knapp. So these are big names in the evangelical Christian community. They're like, you know, if we said Chapel Run and, Lady Gaga and Beyonce, Amy Grant was that in the Christian world.
wow,
And so we were like, you know, almost fanatics for Amy Grant in our house. Um, and I could sing you every single Amy Grant song there ever was, and those all of those, Christian songs, along with worship music, became a big thing in that
Yeah.
evangelical Christian movement. It sounds more contemporary, it's not the old hymns, which I really
Yeah.
love old hymns as well, but that contemporary, worship music was something that was just, like, molded into my brain because,
Mm.
it was a way to memorize scripture. A lot of them were Bible verses, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really a fascinating thing because those pop into my head still. I left the church, 25 years ago, but those pop up into my head regularly. And especially in the past year, I've begun a project of compiling those songs and excuse me, the messages within them. It's interesting that my throat went right there because it still kind of like causes my heart to flutter, to push up against those teachings. Um, but I've begun putting together those songs and the messages and working with journaling and my therapist to understand how my concept of self, with which what you're naming is, typically in adolescence, we create this concept of self that's about us. And what I did was I created a concept of self that was about condemning myself and, dying for Christ. And so I didn't have that learning curve that's really developmentally appropriate when you're a teenager to begin to pull away from your parents' world and to create your own. And yeah, it's been unbelievable to go through those lyrics and be like, of course, I, got into unhealthy relationships and have really struggled to treat myself well or to not be, hating myself because I was
Yeah.
explicitly taught. Um, a real, condemnation of self through that music. So music can be a force of incredible good, but it can also be a force of incredible manipulation because it lives in such a impactful part of our brain.
Yeah, it almost feels a bit cruel to put messages in such catchy songs because you can't you can't help like them.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Uh, it's a fascinating story. Fascinating story. And then, fast forward to today, I saw something super interesting when I was reading through your bio about the role music plays in your life today. So I was wondering whether you could tell us a little bit about how you use music today and the role it plays in your life.
Mhm. Yeah, so like we just said, music is super powerful. It has, a really strong, um, sort of less cognitive connection with our nervous system. And that's why a song can move us to tears, even if we're not someone who's a crier. It's why, soundtracks can be so influential in a movie and take us on an entire emotional journey. It's why, people who write songs are often writing about things that are really emotional because it is so connected to our nervous system, which is what connects us to emotion. And in my perspective, is what connects us to oneness, to this universal consciousness, to this like interconnectivity of all beings. And so there's lots of great scientific research about how impactful music can be in terms of regulating the nervous system, providing people with an avenue to sort of integrate past trauma that they may have difficulty doing on a cognitive level because the cognition can't really get to those, core kind of buried stuff. And music has a really amazing impact on overall health, but especially on stress and the nervous system. So there's lots of great research about how just listening to a piece of classical music or even any music that's meaningful to you and sitting with it mindfully can reduce stress and increase health levels, all sorts of health levels. But I work with a modality that has been specifically uh, altered to be used as a clinical intervention to support increased nervous system flexibility and resilience so that. Folks who get stuck sort of in that fight, flight, freeze as a result of long-time trauma or maybe wired that way because of neurodivergence can listen to this specially filtered music that then invites their nervous system in a subconscious way. It's a passive modality, so you don't have to think hard, you don't have to try. It invites your vagus nerve back into a rhythm of connection with safety, and it feels magical, but it's 100% science. It's not,
But
woo-woo
yeah,
at all, which is
yeah.
really cool,
I mean, I
and it
like the magical as well. I don't even need the science.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very cool because I'm a naturally woo person, but when I found this, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's also science, so I can share it with
Yeah,
everyone."
yeah,
And,
yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating, and the I pair it with somatic parts work, which is, sort of in the lineage of shamanism. There's
Mm,
also internal family systems, which, picked up on what the body naturally does is it fragments, when trauma happens or when there's,
yeah.
sort of a breaking, with self for, self-preservation, and we speak to these parts and invite them back in with compassion. And the music paired with that work has been incredible. In my own life, I went through it myself before I became
Mm,
a practitioner, and I was so transformed by it that I then got trained in it, and now I share it with people, and it's just the greatest joy of
wow.
my life.
Congratulations. And
Thank you.
I mean, so much in there. The internal family systems things I'm really aware of from a friend who's had kind of deep healing through those teachings. But also what you were saying about the music and the effect on the nervous system. I kind of think I'm probably neurodivergent in some way, although I haven't really focused on finding out how. But it's probably only in the past year when I'd felt deep senses of overwhelm and overstimulation that I've started using certain music as a tool. And I can never remember the guy's name, but his playlist is basically, healing on 48 hertz, relaxation on something else.
Beautiful.
And I never thought of using music that way before. Normally I'd stick on noise cancelling headphones and I still do sometimes. I just want silence, darkness. But I've started using this music as a different kind of tool, and it does something to my brain. It does something to my nervous system that I found remarkable. Yeah, I was just like, wow, this is actually, I can almost instantly feel it being like, like to start bringing me down from space, and I'm like, okay.
Amazing, right?
Um, and then you touched on shamanism there. I mean, I think I probably don't I don't approach much from a scientific approach, but certainly from my experience with plant medicines and things like that, when you have strong experiences about frequency and vibration and how it can heal, that's always been music for me, is that no matter what's going on in the brain, it's doing something to your body. And sometimes you can not even like a song intellectually, but it's doing something to your body. And some other songs that you do like, yeah, they have some healing, they have some joy. I don't know, there's so much to it. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's a fascinating like intersection of things that you're using there. Yeah, fantastic. Um,
Enough for
listen,
20 conversations.
yeah, I have talked long enough. I think it would be great to find out what song you brought with you today. I guess just before we do, a quick heads up: if you're new to the show, we are not here to break down music theory or studio techniques. We are here for the stories, the memories, and the moments songs get tied to. So if you haven't heard the track we're about to talk about, please take a second to listen before we carry on. And trust me, I think the conversation will kind of hit differently once this song's in your ears. So, uh, okay, please tell us the song that you brought with you today.
It's No Day But Today, from the musical Rent, written by, Jonathan Larson.
Fantastic. And we were saying before that the only musical I've ever seen on stage is Rent. So we're getting a lot of can't think of the word, a lot of beautiful coincidences today.
Synchronicities.
Synchronicity. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Always curious to know your process on the choice. Like, was there a few songs that you were wrestling with, or was it always going to be this one?
Yeah, there's no other song. There's just as much as I love Christmas songs, um, this is the song that, I don't wanna be buried, I wanna be tossed out in the ocean, but if I were to have a tombstone, I'd want it to say "No day but today."
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And can you set the scene for us, please? If you remember the moment that you first heard this, like, where were you? Who were you? What was happening in your world?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question because I hadn't thought about it, but I was really at a point where it's interesting because it was a point where the whole religious thing was about to completely crack open and spontaneously
Mm.
combust. My sister was a senior in college, which means I was a sophomore in college, and we went to the same college, and we were very involved in the Christian ministry, Campus Crusade for Christ, um, which was a very intense group. And she was dating a guy who was a big musicals guy, and we had been into musicals, but certainly we would not have come across Rent because Rent is pretty racy. You've seen it. It definitely deals with sex and queer people and AIDS and drugs and a lot of gritty stuff that wouldn't have been in our world, in that evangelical world. And her boyfriend took her to see Rent in LA, and she raved about it, and so I started listening to the soundtrack without having seen it, and I was like, oh my gosh, transported. I didn't know what was happening really, just from the music. I couldn't quite get all that was going on. There's beautiful songs about living with AIDS that I didn't connect that they were talking about AIDS. There's beautiful queer love stories, and I didn't quite get that that was what was happening either. But I was mesmerized by the music. And then her relationship sort of spawned like a breakdown within that little ministry, and she left. They left, her and her boyfriend, and I was stuck. Like, what do I do? The leaders were telling me like, "Oh, your sister's gone off the deep end, like, you have to bring her back and you have to stay connected," and I was like, hearing stuff from my sister was like, "Maybe I don't wanna be connected to this group," and, um there was, so much. I just felt really confused, and I wanted to prove to everybody that I was good. And I was at the same time really grappling with my own queerness. I had realized that I was queer when I was like 11, but I had been told that, we're all given, like, a cross to bear, and that if you're queer, that's what you've been given, is, like, you showed Jesus that you love him through not acting on it, and so I just, within 5 minutes of realizing, I was like, "Okay, this is my cross to bear, this is really great. I have a really good one, a really hard one, and that's gonna gain me, more jewels on my crown in heaven." And, so I had just kinda packaged it up and left it to the side, but my freshman year and sophomore year of college, I got very involved with the women's basketball team at my college, which was, like, my total subconscious being like, "Where are the gays?" Like, I really like basketball, actually, is what's happening. So I was in this world with all these women who were out and who were in relationships, and it was causing me no end of suffering. I was just feeling really tortured and suicidal. Like, what am I going to do with this? And then, my sister was breaking off from this group. I was trying to prove that I was not gonna, that I was gonna keep bearing this cross. And I ended up going in this really terrible missions trip with this program that has now been shut down as like a child abuse cult. And I had, yeah, a really gnarly, like PTSD inducing experience in the Philippines for a month with that group. And I ended up escaping. Um, and I didn't think I was going to say all of that, but that didn't, not what I thought we would talk about today. But yeah, that them going to Rent was really like a turning point in a lot of ways because it was them kind of doing this thing that was outside of what we were supposed to do, and it led to me, going down a pretty dark path of trying to prove that I was not gonna do the same thing. And then, when the movie came out, Full Circle, 3 years later, I went and saw it with my, um, ex now, but partner at the time, and it felt like we could do it. We could have a life. I didn't know any queer people. I hadn't ever seen that done before, and we found each other at a Baptist college in Waco, Texas, and the movie came out that same year, and it felt like maybe we can have something beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story and for trusting us to share that story as well. Um, and there's so much in there. There's so much in there. That's a hell of a journey you've been on. A hell of a journey you've been on. Um, and it goes without saying how powerful something like Rent would have been based on you going through that journey. Do you remember what really hit you first when you listened to this song? Um, was it the general sound? Was it the lyrics? Was it the energy? Can you take yourself back and tell us how that kind of felt in the body at the time?
Yeah. So this song is woven throughout the whole musical. So there's several like moments where it comes back up and has different lyrics. And the part that's most impactful to me that I feel like is still really present for me every day is when one of the characters, Mimi, who's addicted to, I think it's heroin, and is really suffering and is saying to this guy who's living with AIDS, like, give us a chance, like, let's try loving each other. And he had already lost a partner to heroin, and he was conflicted about his own, AIDS, and didn't want to pass that on. And she says, a heart can freeze or it can burn. Um, and that line, I feel like, is what we're all confronted with every 30
Mm.
seconds. We could just glaze over. We could just say it's too painful. We could just say it's not worth it to love. We could just say, I'm just going to stay in my box and follow the rules and get as much safety as I can. or we can burn with the pain of it all, and we can experience that fire and that love and that connection and that meaning and that deep sorrow, but that immense joy as well. And I've never been able to choose freeze. I have only been able to choose burn, and I just feel like I have spent my whole life trying to see that outside of myself, trying to connect with someone else who saw, the immensity of the stakes of every moment of life, that, you know, what's gonna happen in 10 years, or if I'm successful, or if my, you know, community thinks I did the right thing, or
Mm,
if I listen to popular music instead of Christmas music, all of these things that are not about today, they're about some sort of thing that we're never going to experience, like you never get to actually be in the past or the future. Um, I haven't figured out how to live that way, even though I feel like the world has been telling me my whole life, "You need to, stop it," And I heard these amazing humans, singing with such passion, like, yeah, there is only today, there's only us, there's only this, like, you and me are the only thing that exists in our entire planets right now. There's nothing else. I have no proof that there's anybody else on the planet right now. You're the only one, and I don't even know if you're real. You could be AI, you know? So, like, this conversation could be my very last, and I feel that way so deeply about everything, and I was so grateful to connect with that in this music, in especially this song, but in the whole musical, and I've since watched documentaries about Jonathan, and he very much lived that way. His whole life was writing. Talk about songwriting.
yeah.
I'll email you a really beautiful documentary about him. You might really resonate, but he never had money. He never had, fame or, um, anybody who was proud of him, but
Mm,
he so deeply believed in love and music and creativity, for the sake of it, and, he died after opening night, when Rent finally got produced. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. And there's so many amazing things you talked about there. I mean, again, I've seen it. I listened to the song, um, and really, whilst I couldn't remember it, it certainly had quite an impact on me. And it so much that you mentioned there. I mean, for me, it was choosing love over fear. It was choosing presence over like postponement. And I read something the other day that two of the biggest things that hold humans back in life is chasing this idea of success that they have that they never quite get, and second is worrying about what other people think. And these are like two conditions of the human brain that actually keep us trapped and stop us being free, stop us actually opening up to how life can be. And it's kind of part of the machine, right? It's part of the machine and the human condition. But my partner is also studying to be an end of life doula at the moment, and we
Mm,
actually talk a lot about death.
yeah.
Um, and she was reading this book and about um, planning how you want to die and things like that. And I will terribly paraphrase the quote, but it was the concept of, well, if you want to die this way, why wouldn't you want to live this way? And it's this idea of like, what's stopping you living like that right now? And the answer is all the bullshit that goes on in between. Yeah, so it seems like I resonate with so much of what you said there about both the themes of the production itself, but also what was kind of happening for you and what you took from this when you listened to it. And is it different listening to it now than the first time you heard it?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that like great love that I was connecting with when the movie first came out,
Mm,
it's no longer, right? And not only are we not together, we're co-parenting, but it's been really, really painful. A lot of just, I think hate is actually the same thing as love.
mm,
But it's whether we feel safe or whether we feel afraid, how it's expressed. When we feel safe, it comes out as love. When we feel afraid, it comes out as hate. And I spent 4 hours yesterday in the emergency room with our kiddo, who, thank God, everything's okay. He had strep. But to be in that tiny little room together with all the complexity of that. And now he's 14, almost 15. He's understanding life sort of in a similar developmental way that I was when I first connected with music.
mm,
He's trying to figure out, what does it mean that the world is as broken as it is, coming out of the innocence of childhood and seeing that there is so much pain and loss and heartache and the invitation he's heading into high school is like achievement, 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 take the hardest classes, be the star in soccer, go get as much money as you can, and this little bohemian heart, I'm over here like, there's no day but today, like, just enjoy it. Like, you don't need to study, and I'm like, can we all hold hands and like recognize that this hate is actually love? It's like not nobody's there for it. But um yeah, yeah. I mean, watching it this morning, I'm like, yes, like this is why it has been like such a challenge for me because I'm just like, money, y'all, like this is such a waste, and like what are like trying to there's one short song in the show where they all sort of like uh one of the beloved characters dies and they all are like evicted, kicked out, and locked out of the place that they're living. And they're like, I guess I'll get a job. They like sell their souls, quote unquote, and they're all depressed. And the guy who is in the No Day But Today song who's, hesitating on love, he sells his guitar, he was a songwriter, his whole goal of the whole show was to write one song, and he sells his guitar for a car, and he goes to, like, try to get a job, like, they all try to do the freeze thing, "Okay, I'll just, like, be a cog, I'll just sign up for the system, I'll just, like, shut down my heart," and it's like, I did the thing, I got, the job, and I had a kid, and I got married, and I tried to be normal, and I just have never been able to pull it off. 15 years in public schools, trained as a speech pathologist, I was like, impressive. People thought like, "Wow, that's a great job." My parents were proud, and it's like, I'm still me, I'm still like, shivering in the dark saying like, "Let's light a candle together." This is like,
mm.
let's just feel each other's hearts. That's all that is interesting to me. That's all that's meaningful to me. I can't do the regular thing. Um, and so, yeah, having a kid who's, that used to be magical to have a very bohemian parent who's not doing the regular thing,
Yeah.
but now that he's in the world and trying to fit in and, the message is like, "What's going on with that mom of yours?" Um, it's less fun and he has more questions and, I don't you know, look down on him at all for wanting to fit in and for wanting to be
Mm,
successful, like you just acknowledged. Those are the 2 things that drive so much of human behavior, and on a DNA level, it's in our, nervous system to keep us surviving, and that has been to stay in the group and keep your head down, don't get kicked out. Um, so different, but also the same. I just, wanna light a fire in a, abandoned warehouse and make art and, cry my eyes out and say, "Life is so beautiful and tragic." Yeah.
I'm with you. Let's go light that fire. It's so true, though, I think. And, from when I was growing up, like you said, societal expectation, parental expectation, and your own, your own sort of life, trying to figure out what life's about. It's like you're on a really fast moving train where you're moving towards these things you think you need to go and get. Uh, and then, you probably get there and you're in your 20s and your 30s and you're like, hold on a second, this is what I wanted. I don't think I've stopped to think about what I want because this isn't actually the life I want to be living. You start sort of trying to think, unpick, relearn. Like for me, it was like, okay, I think I need to go back and really do some work on myself because I don't know whose life I'm living right now. But compassion that there is a big wave that you can get swept up in there when you're younger. And maybe it's part of the journey you've got to go through, but yeah, no, I think definitely they are blessed to have the boho parent that's giving some balance to the situation as well. And I guess a question for you in the mysterious cosmic nature of the universe, why do you think this song was delivered to you when it was?
Mm. Mm. I love imagining Jonathan, like, sitting in his cold apartment, not having had any food, writing this song and thinking, "I have to write this song because we had to hear it,"
Mm,
right? And I really think that life would have given us this song even if he hadn't been able to. Like, I think life is gracious,
mm,
the what the universe wants to create will be created, whether we're able to birth it or not. Some of us die in childbirth, and some of us just say, I am not up for it. And I think
mm,
that's totally okay. But I'm so grateful that he was willing to birth it because in when I first heard it, it kind of represented like you're allowed to break the rules. It was my sister breaking the rules, and I was like, "What's gonna happen?" And I saw what happened. She got kicked out,
mm,
um, and it scared me at first, and I wasn't ready for it, really. But then when it came to the theaters and I had broken the rules myself, it came as this, like, "Yeah, it's worth it to get kicked out." It's worth it to not have the success and to have the loss and to have all of the, pain and suffering because what you get when you are actually in today, that's what all the music is about. That's what
mm.
all the movies are about. We all know that that's what we actually want.
And why do you think it hasn't let go of you, or maybe you haven't let go of it?
Mm. I, as a little child, was convinced that I was Jewish, and I would tell my parents that, and they would say, well, Jews can convert to Christianity, but Christians can't convert to Judaism, which, newsflash, I found out 35 years later was not the truth. Um, but I used to stand in the aisles at Passover when they had the matzah, and I would just weep. Begged and begged for a Star of David. My parents finally bought me one with a cross in the middle. I was deeply, deeply convinced that I was Jewish. And later on, after my divorce and after all that I'd been through losing Christianity, I finally went to a therapist, and the therapist was like, "Look, it seems like you're a spiritual person, but you're totally denying that. And I think you need to reconnect with something bigger than yourself in order to
Mm,
survive on this planet." And I was like, "Well, the only thing I would ever be is Jewish, but I'm not allowed to convert." And she happened to be Jewish, a Jew who had converted. And so again, synchronicities, I then ended up, connecting with a local rabbi, and I converted to Judaism. And one of the first Friday night services, I was really struck by a moment where there's a prayer that basically says, like, you won't be forgotten, you can't stray too far, like, you'll never be lost, like, I'll always come back for you.
mm,
And I feel like this song, and really all of the songs that kind of carry us through, they're they're not gonna let us go. They're not gonna let us forget. They're gonna offer us to come back every time that we've sort of gotten away from our course, from ourselves, from what really is so meaningful to us. And you know, for me, being on this planet is like an exercise in asking the question over and over again, like, even though it's so awful, can love still exist here?
mm,
Uh, and I feel like that this song really brings me back to that regularly. I think this was very beautifully timed after, the 4 hours yesterday of being in that little ER room going, what is this? How could it be this? How
mm,
could we have gotten here? It was talk about synchronicities and songs. When I first walked into the room, because they got to the ER first, my kid started singing For the Longest Time.
oh,
And
wow.
that's not a song that's really in his lexicon. And a few seconds later, my ex started singing along. And, the year that I was pregnant with him for our anniversary, we went on a little, weekend trip, and my gift to her was that I sang her that song. And I don't know if she remembers, and he certainly doesn't know. And I was feeling a lot of, anxiety about being in that room with them, and it felt like, yeah, another invitation, like, love's always there, even when it looks like
Mm.
hate.
Oh, beautiful words. Beautiful words. Um, what do you think this song choice says about you?
I don't know, what do you think it says about me? Oh, I wear myself out. Mm. I don't really know. I can't explain how I got here, but I'm glad that I think if I met Jonathan Larson, I would, uh I would feel a little less awed, a little less,
Mm,
uh, you know, I think maybe Jane Eyre and Jonathan Larson are the people who could understand the amount of drama and, walking in the foggy moors that I feel like all of life is for me, and it's always been just too much for everyone else. So I think this song says, yeah, that I won't let go of the depth of, um, that intensity that children feel. I haven't been able to, and I don't think I ever will be able to.
Mm. And something that comes up on this show nearly every episode, which is I'm just constantly blown away every time I hear the deep impact a song has had on someone and listening to them talk about it. I can't help think of the songwriter um, as a songwriter, because some songs take 2 minutes. It's a thought, it's a feeling that comes through the body. It just arrives, you record it, it's gone. I appreciate others take a lot of work, but just to think that someone has written this song and they put it out into the world, and when it reaches you, it has this giant impact, and they never, consciously sort of know about it. And it could be you times a million people that are all reacting to this song and interpreting it in different ways. I just feel it's just fascinating. It's just fascinating that it comes through someone's body. They put it out there, and for some people, it's just an anchor, a gift, a source of strength. It can be all these different things. Um, and very grateful for artists in general that manage to find a way to pour something deep out of them that may really help someone else in some sort of way. Um, yeah, and feel very grateful to be able to listen to so many different songs from you know 5, 6 decades, and just have all that coming into my ears and my body. Um, we're starting to come towards the end of our conversation now. But before we do, I would love to know that, looking back on what we shared, the song, the story, the memories it carries, um, is there anything that stands out most for you right now, or anything new that's kind of come up for you at all?
As you were talking about how powerful music is, I just was thinking about, there's no human society that has been without music, and
Mm,
many of the early, um, human groups, had languages that were singing, basically. They were, more like a bird song, whistles and chirps and rhythms, um, and that we may think of music as fluff or entertainment, but I really see it as intrinsic to the human experience.
mm,
Um, and uh, one of the things that I've experienced in my life is that I feel deep, deep love and connection with things that are not just people. I know lots of people feel it with nature, with music, um, and I feel it with books too, and authors and
mm,
songwriters, um, and kind of imagine us all um, leaving little uh, crystal stones out for each other to find, you know, to help someone get through one more day. Because sometimes no day but today can still feel very long. One day can feel
yeah,
really
yeah,
long.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I
So
love that little crystal breadcrumbs for the people that come. I love that idea. Oh, um, thank you for bringing this song. and for bringing yourself so openly and trusting us with your story. I think, or I know, we were meant to be here together at this point. And it's been amazing to meet you and amazing to share this time with you. I've smiled a lot, felt a lot of different things. So I thank you. And before we close, is there a place where people can find you, follow you, connect with what you're creating right now?
Mhm. Yeah, I have a website and a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And they're both the Rooted Co-op. Um, so therootedcoop.com and then YouTube at the Rooted Co-op. And YouTube is like all random thoughts, but also a lot of resources for supporting your nervous system and understanding how the nervous system works and distress tolerance skills. I try to make a lot of stuff free on there. So if anyone's interested in learning any of that, that's all there. And then if anyone ever wants to have a conversation with me or all the way to working with me, you can just book a free call anytime. I'm always so happy to meet people and connect on anything that's meaningful to them.
Fantastic. I've got your website, so I'll make sure we include it on the episode link for anyone that
Thank you, Chef.
listens. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
It's our time. It's our time. It's our time.